think it's the 12th today. I'm kind of losing track. So we're getting some definite haze. I'm going to say smoke. I'm not really sure. I do have enough solar to run tools at least. Can't weld and I can't run the big chop saw, but the other stuff, the grinders, the important things, the grinders, I can run those just fine. So the plan for today, 2 or 3 days ago now, I built this. That's the cargo rack for the bike. I've done absolutely no cleanup on it. May not bother. At this point, everything is a rolling prototype, so I'm not going to screw around with, too much finish work. Not going to waste any paint on it. All this metal has been sitting out in the sun and a little bit of rain for a 3 years now, so whatever, right? So next step is the chassis. Carefully sketched it up. So what I'm coming up with here, I want 16 inches between the rails, so I'm going to do basically a ladder frame chassis. So I got 2 pieces here marked. I cannot tell. I guess I'm wearing sunglasses. That throws things off a little bit. So I got a couple pieces marked for 16s. So that's going to go across. What I'm playing with here is to make kind of a triangle coming down and then a center beam. So it'll be kind of like a ladder with 3 rails. So I'm looking at the cross section now. And then imagine that this is a lot longer. This will be the side rail. So a side rail. And I'm not sure what to do about the bottom yet. I do know I want 16 inches between. That gives me enough room to hang my seat. I can go narrower, but then I'm unsupported on the outer edges where the wheels are. If I go too wide, that's just wasted material and added weight, but it would be stronger. And that stuff is, it's steel. It's relatively strong. It's what they used. These are school bus seat parts. So it is pretty strong. One of the issues, though, this stuff is a U-channel, so it's only got 3 sides. They didn't close it off like as if it was square tubing. Now the legs are square tubing. However, I don't have very much for long straight pieces of that, so I'm going to try to use this instead because I've got some of these that are 32 inches long, plus a little bit actually. What you build a little bit is determined by the size and the shape and the condition of your materials. If I do 45s here, and I'm trying to be aware of which way this faces so that I can weld it to something, I'll probably end up doing a smaller piece down here in between because I want to stay with 45 because that just makes everything easier because I got a speed square. So I can lay these out to 45 and then it tips over. So because I'm doing 16 inches on the top, and these I had cut from before, they're 8 inches long, I can make that anything. But at the same time, I don't want this to come down too far. So then I'm like, okay, I could just chop off a bunch of these. Now these are already cut, so I'm going to use them for this. That's why it's like, well, you already got them cut and they're prepped. They're already, all the rust is removed and the paint and everything. There's some engineering involved, and I don't have the skills to do that correctly. As a guy who, used to be a mechanic and was always fascinated by how things work, I'm just kind of aware of what seems right because I've seen it before. A triangle is really strong. So if I run into a spot where something isn't strong enough in the right direction, for instance, the cargo rack has a tendency to twist, but it's very strong in 2 directions. This feels like a kludge on top of a kludge. Drill press vise clamped down to the workbench. And then I'm using a piece of conduit to help hold this U-channel in place because I can't get the vise to really grip it right. So the conduit does seem to help. Go figure. So we cut it one way and then we flip it and cut it the other way. I don't want to cut all the way through it because my wheel is getting too small now. Okay, two things. These are smoking hot, so don't pick them up with your finger. And they're very sharp. And if they fall on the sand, in like a matter of minutes, they will completely disappear because you kicked them a few times. And those would be just murder on tires, so. Yeah, that actually worked okay. So now I'm just going to clean them up a little bit with the grinder so I don't have sharp, ragged edges that jam me up later. Where did I see it? Right there. Stamped 97. This is from a 1997 bus, and so every now and then you'll see a piece of metal that had a stamp in it. The other 5 lined up and ready to go. Most of the prep work is just getting the paint and the rust off so that I can weld them, because you really can't weld over paint. It'll burn through the paint, but then the paint contaminates the weld, so that's not ideal. Okay, quick shot of the setup before it all goes south on me, right? So I've got this edge flush to the outside, pretty close. I'm using the speed square to set my basic angle. I just kind of roughed it. They're not quite hitting the marks, but as long as I've got enough room on the outside for this guy, then we're fine. So we got 1/4 of an inch there, that's fine. And I already checked that one. Okay, so not high precision. I kind of rounded these a little bit, like this is an 8-inch long piece and this is a 3-inch long piece, so it wouldn't match up to a 16-inch long piece, plus I needed about 1 inch on the outside edge. I did grind down the gap a little bit, and I'm just using these little magnets to kind of hold things in place. So I think I'll start on this side and do a little tack, just a little tack there, a little tack there, a little tack there, get the magnets out of the way, double check it with the speed square. Do another tack on each one to hold it in place, and then I can flip it over, tack the back side, and then we go from there. Yeah, nothing to it. So the next sound will be the mighty generator roaring to life, and then we'll get down to some welding here. Couple minutes to air cool, that helps a little. I hate that when I leave my sunglasses on. It's really hard to see what you're doing. Well, I'm not sure if they look any better from this far away, but they's done. I didn't even burn myself today. Something like this, only upside down. It's kind of what I'm thinking. I just kind of had to mock it up again to look at it. The pile is getting small. I had pictured that I had a lot of those, and I'm starting to like, ugh. But as long as I get a rolling prototype out of this, then we can go from there. All right, just another starkly beautiful day. We're getting a little bit of clouds, but should be good for solar. Sunrise this morning was bright red though, so we definitely have some smoke or something in the air. It's a little bit hazy, cuts down on solar a little bit, but should be good. So plan for today, I've got these pieces cut and welded yesterday, and we're going to assemble that. So today I need the side rails for the chassis, which is these. All in all, I think it's going okay. Maybe not great, but okay. It's not perfectly square, but it's close. Odds are that won't make a lot of difference. I'll just try to watch for that. Here's one of the things when you're working later on, you're going to try to mount something, and if what you mount it to isn't square and you don't see it, that'll mess you up. I threw the tires on here just to get a sense of scale. They're sitting, they're not attached in any way. Honestly, I don't remember exactly how I was going to do this. As it sits now, I would have virtually no ground clearance. but that's because the spindle is on top of the frame. This wedge coming down is really low compared to the bottom of the tires. But I could flip this thing over. This is actually upside down. This was supposed to be on the bottom, although I think on the first turtle prototype I had it sitting this way. Probably because when I put the bolts on, those are correct, these are upside down. Normally I'd put nuts down, airplane thing. But for scale, I was looking at this to make sure that when I'm at full turn, I don't hit the frame, and we're fine there. So I got the frame narrow enough. That's one of the reasons I went as narrow as I did. I could have gone frame wider, which would have had some advantages. It would make this stronger if the frame was all the way out, okay? But I needed room to turn. This is wide enough for the width of the seat, or thereabouts. I think the seat will come out just a little bit, but that's a good compromise. The cargo rack, which is one giant tetanus shot waiting to happen. I'll sit something like that. I think that's what I come up with. I'm going to have to look at my drawings again, but the back rung is more or less even with the back of the frame. However, I added a whole 5 inches to the frame, which is fine. Honestly, a little longer is fine. What I drew was really short, and I've already stretched it once on the drawing. So here I just added another 5 inches. That's not going to be a problem. This is the test. You know, literally, is this going to work? We don't know yet. I have no idea. Could fail horribly. That's the fun part. Next major hurdle is to figure out how to mount wheels and hubs to the axle, just to knock the slag off it, but it's ugly. It's also smoking hot, so don't touch it. Anyway, this is the next day. Yesterday, I had to fight back the urge to stand on it because it was only tacked. Now I've got a bead. I honestly hadn't planned on doing this right now since it is pretty hot, but if I'm careful where I grab it, yeah, I'm standing on it. It is freaking good. I like it. I was like, oh, it doesn't really even feel like it flexed. Maybe it did a little bit, but that'll be fine. Yeah, I think we're good. This was kind of what I was thinking before, is some days I'm kind of excited about this and some days I'm not. And I just really got to work on being more excited. That way it'll get finished. Got a ways to go, but in the meantime, looks kind of cool. I just wanted to get a shot of this for scale. So this is my blue bike. That's what I just call it. It's my single speed, kind of a cruiser bike. That's what I typically ride. Next to it is the handcart that I use for the bike trailer. And next to it is the mock-up of the next evolution of Turtle. The first test rides were the front axle on here, actually, and little wheels at the time. So this isn't quite how it's going to be, but it's kind of represents where the layout is going to be. Front axle near the front of the chassis, somewhere in there. Rear axle approximately on this cross piece, but I can't have it at the cross piece because the sprockets would hit, so it'll have to get moved one way or the other. At the moment, I don't really know, and I can test it a little bit. Design time, I guess. If I slide the axle back, it'll be a smoother ride, but it won't turn as tightly, which I don't really need. I don't have very many places I do tight U-turns, so it's not a big deal, and I can turn the front wheels pretty far anyway. Long wheelbase typically rides nicer. We run smaller wheels on the front, mainly so that they can steer easier. So if I had that big wheel on the front, if I can do this without knocking everything over, you can see here I'm turned, I'm heating metal on metal here. Okay, so that's past 45 degrees. Okay. If the bigger wheel was on, it would hit the frame there. By a little bit, not very much, but it would be getting closer. Okay. So you can turn this all the way. Now the width of the frame is pretty close to the width of me sitting down. So the way that we do this on a recumbent bike, my pedals are going to be way out here in the front. So I'm going to have to make an extension for the pedals, but I wanted to keep it separate from the main chassis. That way I could reuse this chassis for something else later. I'll sit pretty much like my butt would be right on where that conduit is, right there, the silver piece. And then I lean back at 45 degrees so that my head is approximately over here now. I added another 5 inches into here. I was going to have it that my head was going to be even with here, but this will give me more room behind the seat because the seat is sloped so far. I got a lot of room under the seat that I can take advantage of. Looking at it, okay, motor is going to be down below the cargo deck. Get out of my shadow. The axle is going to be down below. Okay. Both axles are going to be underneath instead of on top. This was just easier to set them here. So chain from the front, from the pedals, is going to go down, and there's going to be rollers, basically little sprockets that'll guide the chain, and it'll go through, basically through the middle of the chassis. So the chain will be kind of going through the middle, and then when we get back to where the motor is, which is somewhere in about here, and then the cargo rack is already basically built. This version is not going to have suspension. I don't have suspension on that bike either. It would be nice on the rough road though. I'm hoping later version I'm going to move away from bicycle wheels and go to a more, one possibility is if I can find a sweet spot between an inexpensive wheel and tire for a motorcycle that's in about the same size as that, would be really cool if I can get the same wheels front and back, get 4 of them plus a couple spares, and then set this up that if I have a flat tire I can just pop off a wheel, put another one on, and keep on going. But for now, this is what we got. There's fat tire bikes that have a 4-inch wide tire, which is about the same width as the motorcycle. It'll pedal harder, but it'll be really nice on this road. So that's a possibility. Anyway, wind is kicking up. I got done what I wanted to do today. I'm going to leave this sitting out here, just so if I walk out later, I have an idea. That's kind of how these are happening. I'll just sit there and look at something for a few days and then try to work through it. This piece was a good example of that. It started off random scraps, kind of held together, figure out the geometry, and then when I liked it, then I welded it together, and it's going to serve me well because until it breaks, I'm just going to keep using it and then make little changes to it, and then the next version will be better. So in the meantime, I'll just keep using this one. Yeah. It's about half as complicated as what I was originally going to do, so that was a nice compromise. Anyway, that's kind of it. I just wanted to get a shot of scale, and I think I can upload this, and then you guys know I'm doing something. Cool.